Have you ever felt like being an empath is this incredible superpower, but also a really heavy burden? If that hits home, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to dive into the neuroscience behind that feeling of being totally overwhelmed, and then we'll look at how to flip that script, how to turn it from a source of drain into your absolute greatest strength. Does this sound like you? You know that feeling, you walk into a room and it's like you can instantly feel the emotional weather. It's not just that you see it, you feel it. It's a full body experience. You end up absorbing all the energy, the unspoken tensions, the little sparks of joy. And while that's an amazing gift for connection, wow, it often comes with a pretty big price tag. And that's the real rub, isn't it? This deep sensitivity can feel almost psychic, but when it's just running wild, it becomes a fast track to complete and total exhaustion. So the big question is, how do we harness this incredible gift without hitting that wall of burnout? Well, that's exactly what we're here to figure out. All right, so first things first, we've got to really understand the problem. Let's take a look at what's actually happening when an empath gets stuck in that overdrive state. You know, that endless cycle of overgiving and then just completely crashing. It can feel so impossible to escape. Okay, so here's a powerful metaphor for this whole journey. The empath is kind of like Prometheus, chained by their own gift, stuck in this daily grind of depletion and stress. The goal? The goal is to become the compass, to be more like Ariadne. See, she doesn't try to fight the labyrinth. She navigates it with a simple thread. She can offer help without sacrificing herself, because she knows which paths are hers to walk and, just as importantly, which ones she needs to let go. Now, that feeling of being chained up, it's not just some poetic idea. It has a very real, very tangible basis in our neurobiology. So let's pop the hood and take a look at what's actually going on inside your brain when you're in that state of empathic overdrive. First up, we've got something called the default mode network, or the DMN. The best way to think about this is as your brain's inner mirror. It's the part of you that thinks about yourself, replays conversations in your head, and tries to figure out what other people are thinking and feeling. It's absolutely fundamental for social connection. But here's the catch for an empath. This inner mirror is totally hyperactive. It's cranked up to 11. You get stuck in these obsessive loops, replaying social interactions over and over, and you start feeling other people's emotions as if they're your own. The line between you and them just gets blurry, and that creates this constant, draining mental static that is just so exhausting. Okay, next up is the salience network. I love this analogy for it. It's your brain's attention spotlight. Its main job is to constantly scan the world and decide what's important, what might be a threat, and what's actually worth paying attention to. Pretty crucial stuff. So in the empath state, that spotlight basically turns into a blinding floodlight. Everything feels urgent. Every tiny shift in someone's tone of voice feels like a major event. That's why you can't just not notice all those emotional undercurrents. And this leads straight to sensory overload, that feeling of being completely and utterly flooded when you're in an emotionally charged place. And finally, let's talk about the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. Think of this as your body's engine. It's what controls your stress response, that's your fight or flight gear, and your recovery response, your rest and digest gear. It's all about managing your body's energy. For an empath, this engine is just constantly redlining. You get stuck bouncing back and forth between being on high alert, overdoing it, overgiving, and then just completely crashing into shutdown, into that freeze state. This wild swing from all out to all gone, well, that's where that deep, profound physical exhaustion comes from. Okay, so that's the problem. It sounds pretty intense, right? But here comes the turning point. This is the good part. We can actually learn to shift these systems out of that overwhelmed empath state and into the balanced, centered compass state. So let's see what that transformation actually looks like in your brain. First up, that shift in your DMN, your inner mirror. It goes from being a distorted, noisy, chaotic mess to being aligned and clear. You still have that amazing capacity for reflection, but that obsessive static finally quiets down and you can see yourself and others with real clarity. Next, your attention spotlight. It transforms from that blinding, overwhelming floodlight into a calm, focused beam. You can still perceive all those important emotional cues, but now you can filter. You get to decide what actually needs your attention and what you can just let drift on by. That constant nagging sense of urgency, it's gone. And finally, your body's engine, the ANS. Instead of redlining and then crashing, you learn how to consciously shift gears.
You can move smoothly between stress and recovery. You're no longer just a passenger on some runaway train. You are actually in the driver's seat. So, the big question is, how do we actually make this shift happen? This is where the source material introduces a really practical tool, a brand new framework designed specifically to map out these patterns for empaths. It's called the Clinical Empathic Profile Assessment, or CEPA for short. The best way to think of it is like a personal GPS for your empathic nervous system. It's designed to go way beyond just simple labels and actually give you a dynamic map of your own unique neurobiological landscape. So the CEPA framework looks at 5 key areas. It starts with the 3 brain systems we just talked about, your DMN activity, your salience network sensitivity, and your autonomic regulation. But then it goes even deeper, looking at your underlying neurochemical patterns and, this is fascinating, your mythic identification. Basically, is your system operating more like Prometheus or more like Ariadne? And out of this assessment, the framework gives you a proposed metric called the harmonic coefficient, or just H. Honestly, just think of it as a score for your internal coherence. It's a tangible way to measure your resilience and your capacity for empathy that doesn't burn you out, which means you can actually track your progress over time. Okay, now hold on, because this is where this whole approach takes a really futuristic and I think a really exciting turn. The source material suggests a pretty surprising ally in this whole journey: artificial intelligence. Now, let's be crystal clear about this. The point isn't for AI to replace human empathy, not at all. The idea is to use AI as a tool to sustain our own innate ability for it, to help reduce the cognitive load and prevent the burnout that so often snuffs out our empathic flame. What this lays out is a truly symbiotic partnership. We do the essential human work, right? The self-reflection, the conscious breathing, setting those boundaries, intentional recovery, and the AI acts as our support system. It can recognize patterns in our biodata, give us real-time prompts, and take on cognitive load, like tedious admin tasks, so we can focus our precious energy on what really matters. It's a pretty powerful combination. And that brings us to this final, really provocative thought. It's a huge question to chew on. By creating this intelligent ally to help us handle the overload, we might just be freeing ourselves up to do what only humans can do: connect, feel, and express compassion in a way that is actually sustainable and life-giving, not just for everyone else, but for ourselves too. Could AI actually be the thread, that Ariadne's thread, that finally helps us navigate the labyrinth of empathy? It is a pretty wild and fascinating possibility to think about.